Good morning, good evening. Thank you for joining us. My name is Aparajita Gogoi, and I head an Indian nonprofit called the Center for Catalyzing Change. And I also coordinate the White Ribbon Alliance for Safe Motherhood. Today, I'm going to talk to you about the impact of disrespect and abuse during maternity care services on women. And I want to begin by talking about, what do we know about disrespect and abuse? What we know is that it's a global problem. It occurs in low, medium, high income countries. It happens across countries. There is not enough formal research on what causes disrespect and abuse. How do we implement respectful maternity care? But we do have many anecdotal reports. And of course, there are no widely accepted normative standards for respectful care. But what we know is that disrespect and abuse that women face during childbirth is a violation of human rights. Before I begin my presentation, I also want to kind of refresh your minds about the 7 accepted domains of disrespect and abuse. And these are physical abuse, non dignified care, non consented care, non confidential care, discrimination, abandonment or withholding of care, and detention in facilities. So the work around respectful maternity care can be kind of addressed if we address these 7 domains of disrespect and abuse. What is the impact on women? We know that women, when they face disrespect and abuse during childbirth, it has a negative impact on their willingness to uptake care, to access skilled birth attendants, to access care. There are studies which tells us that more than the physical distance from the facility, sometimes more than your financial constraints, it is disrespect and abuse which prohibits women to access care. If they face disrespect once, they will not want to come back to the facility for services. They will talk to the sisters, talk to the neighbors, and when they share these kind of experiences, women are dissuaded from taking care. So what we know is that disrespect and abuse is a barrier to women seeking care, and that's the reason why we need to work on these aspects. So when we started working on respectful maternity care about 5 years back in India, the first thing that we did was we did a landscape analysis, and we found out that policies, protocols, guidelines, training manuals, pre-service, in-service curricula does not really specifically mention respectful maternity care. We also found that disrespect and abuse was not even explicitly recognized as a barrier to utilization of health services by women. We also found that although there are many cases of denial and disrespect and abuse, but women lack awareness about their right to respectful care. They have also normalized such care, and they often find it problematic to stand up and ask that they be treated with respect. Though we found examples of grievance redressal mechanisms when such things happen, but we also found out that patients, women, families are not really using some of those grievance redressal mechanisms. And like I said, what we also found was that although it is happening, there's not enough formal research. So we did a series of research studies. We did qualitative research, we did mixed method research, we did direct observation of childbirth, of antenatal care. We conducted in-depth interviews with women, with the families, and very importantly, with service providers also. So we found that the causes of this particular kind of existence of disrespect and abuse can be bucketed or categorized under 3. And the first one is policy and governance. What we found out was that there is a lack of awareness about policies and guidelines which talks of respectful maternity care if they exist. And again, if it exists, there is not enough enforcement, and there is, of course, not enough accountability mechanisms if your rights are violated. In the health system, we found that there is a work culture normalizing disrespect and abuse. When someone joins and starts delivering services, they see the behavior of the seniors, and without understanding, without analyzing, they start mimicking these behaviors. And it seems that they, even instances when women's rights are violated, they see that as normal, and that's how this culture normalizing DNA is existent. We also found out that service providers' own prejudices also impact the delivery of services. So the same service provider may behave differently to an educated or a well-off woman, and the same service provider will deal differently to a woman who is poor, who is illiterate, who is uneducated, or whom is felt to be powerless. Then, of course, we also understand and acknowledge that inadequate infrastructure, poor working environment, staff shortages leads to high stress, and providers say that because of this, there is not enough of an enabling environment to provide respectful maternity care. In addition to this, we also heard from providers that there is not enough awareness about patients' rights. They're not really trained in communicating in interpersonal skills, or they are not helped to really understand clinical empathy and humanism in provision of services. But what we also found surprisingly was that the level of disrespect and abuse remains largely unchanged by patient load. So whether it's a high patient load facility or low patient load facility, we often see that the behaviors persist. The behavior is the same whether there is many women you're tending to or there are few women. Now, coming to the individual and community level, we know that the overall lack of autonomy and empowerment of women leads to the fact that women are extremely accepting of disrespect as normal. They feel that, I am getting good services, even if I'm getting yelled at, it's fine. It shouldn't be that much of a problem. It's for my own good. And then, of course, we know that women who have poor birth preparedness, who land up in hospitals at the last moment, they all contribute to this environment where people feel that, respectful maternity care may be difficult to follow. There are many stories that we collected from women. I'm just putting out some for you. There is this woman who talks about the fact that she is poor and there is nothing much that she can do. So she takes this inhuman behavior because she knows that she cannot answer back. Another woman talks about, how during her labor, doctors and nurses would examine her, but they never explained to her why they were examining her. They never took her permission for any examination or procedure. Two other women talk about actual physical abuse. One talks about how she was hit with scissors, which caused a deep injury. She was screamed at and scolded by not just the nurses, but by sweepers and ward boys, and how she couldn't do anything. There's another woman who talks about her legs being tied. She was shouting in pain, but no one really bothered to ask her about what is happening. Through our observations also, we have found some of these instances. One of our observers reported that in the labor ward, women were lying with their bodies uncovered. You may have drapes, you may have curtains, but there would still be per vaginal examinations being carried out without any screen or with the lower half of their body exposed. One observer also talked about how there were two women in a bed, although there were vacant beds in the ward. White Ribbon in India and then globally, we launched a campaign called What Women Want, because we really wanted to hear from women about what really constitutes quality of care. So what is it that they want when they think of quality of care? And we were not surprised when the highest ask around quality was dignity and respectful care. So when we asked women, what do you classify as respectful care? Women talked of different aspects. Obviously, they talked about no verbal abuse, no physical abuse, but they also talked about, how it is disrespectful to share your bed or your stretcher with other women, how it is disrespectful to having to pay bribes to get to see your newborn child. So I'm going to just share some of what women asked for around respectful maternity care. There is this one woman who asked for, I do not want to be abused. Please treat me with respect. And she talked about when her labor pains started, she was screamed at by the nurse. And then the nurses told her that if you want better quality or better service, you should go to a private facility. Another woman talked about how she really wanted comfort, privacy, confidentiality, and emotional support. And she talked about, how the behavior of the doctor was very, very good. But another health provider started verbally abusing her, which made her cry. She wanted to run away from the hospital, but she was helpless. And she is asking for that every staff of hospital should be polite and should not be abusive. Another woman talked about how she looks at this demand for money as disrespect. She talks about how after her child was born, they asked for 1,000 rupees. The women's family offered 500, but they were abused, and finally they settled at rupees 800. And she talks about this like it was like bargaining at a marketplace. And then she is demanding that the culture of asking money for sweets must be stopped. I also wanted to kind of bring up this ask about cleanliness because women also include clean facility as part of respectful care. And this is a woman here who's asking for clean labor room, clean toilets, a clean facility. We talk to women, but of course, it's really, really important to also understand from service providers and hear from them what could be some of the solutions to ensure respectful maternity care. Providers ask for regular trainings on empathetic and respectful care, on improving their interpersonal and communication skills, helping them, kind of learn how to engage with community members to improve relationship between the service providers and community members. They talked about, how families also need to improve their own understanding and knowledge about childbirth, about preparing for complication, for birth preparedness, for medical care, for associated risk, so that this leads to better cooperation of the women and the families with the service providers. Then, of course, in order for an enabling environment to be created for delivery of respectful maternity care, providers asked for better infrastructure, better HR, and in infrastructure, it could be beds, screens, hygiene, medical supplies, blanket sheets, etc. I know that we can kind of go on talking about the problems or the prevalence of disrespect and abuse, but we also must focus on solutions. And what we are doing in the past few years is that, we are doing a research study with the Indian Council of Medical Research, where we are trying to understand the typology of disrespect and abuse in public facility in order to come up with standards and indicators to assess RMC in labor room settings in India. We're also working with the Government Medical College in Aurangabad to help them kind of position their facility as a model health facility providing respectful maternity care. We often hear about, how it is impossible to provide respectful maternity care in an overcrowded facility, but this is a facility which has more than 18,000 childbirths in a year, and they have started integrating protocols and standards and indicators for respectful maternity care. And this is showing us that irrespective of how overcrowded you are, if you put your mind to it, if you genuinely believe in respectful maternity care, you can still make it happen. We're also working with the Trained Nurses Association of India in ensuring that content, chapters on respectful maternity care is integrated in the pre-service curriculum. And we are working with the Government of India to ensure that respectful maternity care is front and center in government policies. The Government of India's Lakshya initiative, which is an initiative to improve labor room conditions, has respectful maternity care as its kind of, one of the three objectives. And the White Ribbon in India is really helping the government and other facilities to roll out respectful maternity care. I want to also, before I end, come to, kind of talk on this aspect that, yes, it is really important to work on the supply side, but we must not forget about the demand side too. For women to understand what is respectful maternity care, they have to know about what it is. So we have been doing a lot of work through mainstream media, to social media, to print media, in really ensuring that families and women really understand what is respectful maternity care. They understand that they're entitled to respectful maternity care, and then they demand for these services. I want to end by bringing your attention to the new Respectful Maternity and Newborn Care Charter. This charter has been developed, after widespread global consultation. The charter is on the website, and I would really request all of you to go to this website and endorse and adopt this charter. And I want to end by talking about just two main messages. Number one, that we really, really have to recognize that respectful maternity care is the lack of respectful maternity care is a barrier for women to access services. And we must address and adopt respectful maternity care in order for women to come and partake of services, to access services so that lives of mothers and babies can be saved. And number two, that we have to hear from women about what they defined as respectful maternity care, as what they defined as equity, dignity in health services. this. Thank you so much